Let me turn it over to the leadership. We are incredibly fortunate as a community of industry participants to have two unbelievable leaders who have made it their mission to help private sector engage with the UNFCCC and with the COP process. And they are a central point for a lot of the work that needs to come together in creating these industry-determined contributions. So allow me to turn it over to my dear friends, Nigel Topping and Gonzalo Muñoz from Chile. Gentlemen, over to you.
Gonzalo, maybe I'll just say something about this session. Jules, I was expecting you to bring me in. You obviously had a different script from me, and then we're going to close off the whole industry day, which is what Gonzalo and I are going to do. I just wanted to come in and just to sort of put a parenthesis around the conversation that we've just had. I think this is a very exciting time for this work. We're talking about collaboratively defining whole sectoral transition maps in sectors that historically have never done this. It's actually very familiar it's so familiar in the technology that we don't even notice that when we talk about 4G, 5G, that's a sectoral roadmap, right? Which is pre-competitively agreed and then driven hard to create value for society and for the whole sector. So it's very exciting to hear it. I'm really, I learned a lot about this from my time on the Energy Transitions Commission. So I'm really thrilled that Faustine, the ETC and the World Economic Forum and RMI and We Mean Business now have joined the governance of Mission Possible. So I'm really delighted to see that. It's absolutely at the heart of what Gonzalo are trying to do to bridge non-state actors and state actors. So I'm delighted to hear about the real commitment to specificity of actions in the short term in the context of the long term. Faustine. And I think, Jules, you picked a good one on shipping because it feels like one where there's a lot of collective momentum coming together around some of those concrete plans, which I think we all hope can encourage the IMO to get a dose of ambition ahead of their rather slow process. So having said that, I think we should just start to sort of wrap this session. Thank you, Jules, and this great panel. Then I'll hand over to Gonzalo now. We're going to start trying to put a wrap on the whole day. We've just seen a whole series of these sessions. So Gonzalo, over to you.
Thanks so much, Nigel, and thanks also for the session that we have just heard about. And Jules, thanks for the support that you have given us the whole year. And I would like to start then also thanking the World Economic Forum, the Mission Possible platform, the International Trade Union Confederation, and all of our incredible partners for such an inspirational second day of these dialogues. We are really excited about everything that we're seeing in the dialogues, and we understand that we must use this energy in the run-up to COP to move forward on specific and very measurable net zero commitments in heavy industries, and to accelerate the policy, energy, and technology solutions needed to reach net zero by 2050. We know that hard-to-abate sectors and heavy industry sectors account for up to 30% of greenhouse gas emissions. So today's session carries so much of that sense of urgency around the climate crisis. The good news is that reaching net zero carbon emissions from heavy industry and heavy duty transport sector is technically and financially absolutely possible to a cost of less of 0.5% of global GDP by 2050. And we also know, of course, that the cost of inaction not only surpasses that number, but inaction is simply unacceptable. So now that we know it is technically feasible with technologies that already exist or can reach commercial readiness with continued investment, and today the enthusiasm has been overwhelming from all different businesses and stakeholders committing to accelerating this transition. So with that in mind, what do you think about today, Nigel?
Well, as most of you who know me know, I spent the first 20 years of my career in industry. So I love that we're getting into real industries where real people make real things and moving around the world. And I really love today because this conversation just now has typified it. There's a really strong sense of detailed collaborative efforts about how we get to net zero before 2050. Earlier on, I was on a session with all the leading groups working in the fashion industry, so producers and brands, and they're all coming together to create a shared decarbonisation roadmap, very much in the way that Faustine's just described. It looks like they can come together around driving 45% of emissions around those value chains by 2030. That's the UN Fashion Charter, also an organisation called Fashion Pact, could be as much as a third of the industry. There's a big interim target with some specific steps that can be taken at different parts of the value chain. Also, we're seeing the UK retail industry do a similar great job. They've come together around a roadmap to get to net zero by 2040, with all the stores and warehouses being net zero by 2030. Remember, of course, retail industry has the whole of industry in its value chain. Again, to Faustine's point about demand signals, so we hope that that can really help pull some of the demand signals for decarbonising shipping and other forms of transport. In the UK, of course, they have 67 million people in their customer base. It's a big chunk of the UK emissions. The British Retail Consortium's roadmap's now been supported by 60 retailers. That's just in one country. And actually, so we're now exploring rolling that kind of model out to other countries. I also really enjoyed today the way that poetry is being incorporated in the dialogues. We had one yesterday with the World Health Organization. We had the first US National Youth Poet Laureate, Amanda Gorman, joining us today. We also had Nadir Godrej, CEO of the Indian chemicals company Godrej Industries, repeat a poem he's already broadcast about carbon pricing. So we had some I'm looking to our colleagues from Maersk and Shell to up their creativity. The gauntlet's been laid by one of India's major industrial corporations, although I don't think that's compulsory as long as we get to zero. So I think it's been a really fantastic day of inspiration and really practical, concrete steps as we grapple with the really challenging, disruptive changes that every industry is facing now. Back to you, Gonzalo.
I agree with that. It's really exciting. And I also love to see how getting to zero is becoming such a competitive race now. In this race to zero, we said it during the opening of the day, climate action will become a source of competitive advantage. And we have seen that spirit a lot reflected today. We have heard from new signatories to the climate pledge, which is a commitment to achieve net zero emissions 10 years ahead of the Paris Agreement, and now has 11 signatories since their launch on June 5th, including now Mercedes-Benz, Siemens, Verizon, Infosys, and of course, Amazon. And that's a great collaboration with global optimism. It's becoming so clear that in order to be the leader of the pack, companies need to commit to going net zero earlier than 2050. That's something that is starting to happen, right? And indeed, some companies are committing to it as early as 2030, or some of them have already achieved it. The CEO of SAP, Martin Lindquist, summed up this level of enthusiasm today when he said, we should stop talking and start acting across all stakeholders to work together and support good initiatives that support just industry transitions. That invitation to act is something that we heard during the day and many times. But it's not only a race that companies will win on their own. We must all learn from one another and share best practices, both in operation and across supply chains. That integration in the supply chain is also something that we have seen so many times being reflected. This is why it was so good to hear from ArcelorMittal talking about their effort to scale and promote green steel production, and from Schneider Electric participating in Amazon's climate pledge to reach net zero 1 decade ahead of Paris. Those are, again, companies that will help others also to achieve their own targets. We also heard from Clara de la Torre from the European Commission on how policymakers can and will provide the finance and support to enable businesses to move as fast as they can on this zero carbon pathway. This is where the ambition loop really helps action accelerate. For me, it was very exciting to hear from LafargeHolcim, which is the first global building material company to sign up with intermediate targets for 2030, validated by the Science Based Targets Initiative, who rightly said that the time is over for incremental action. We need a revolution. And revolution requires also magic. And we have seen a lot of magic happening during the dialogues. I would say there is a kind of magical ingredient in the dialogues in the global climate action, and it's about radical collaboration. So when we think about magic and collaboration, yesterday you were very concerned about me being hungry, so you did some magical exercises and gave me a banana through the camera. That was amazing. So I would like now to give it back to you with an orange that might turn into something different when you receive it. So there you are. Oh, again, a banana. Back to you then, Martin.
Incredible magic here on the Race to Zero dialogues. Just to wrap, I think it's really clear that we have great momentum now. People realize this is a revolution that we have to go through to get to net zero. We know from the data that we published earlier that we've already more than doubled net zero commitments during the pandemic, with now over 1,500 businesses committed. And of course, with the SME Climate Hub launched with We Mean Business, the International Chamber of Commerce, and Exponential Roadmap. Looking forward to tens or even hundreds of thousands. I think the ICC have a target of 1 million SMEs joining the Race to Zero, with companies like IKEA and Unilever joining as supply chain leaders to really encourage that. Looking forward to many more companies making those commitments, and many more cities as well. Again, another great demand signal coming from cities. And looking forward to all this fantastic work we've heard about today on heavy emitting industrial sectors coming together, so that by the time we get to Glasgow, we can really be showing the world that this transition is underway. I think the Chief Sustainability Officer of Mahindra Group put it really well this afternoon when he said that setting science-based targets makes environmental sense. That everything you need to do as a business to implement and reach them makes business sense. So we're really excited about the progress we've seen today from many parts of the world of industry, from retail and apparel to cement and shipping, and across the entire value chains. Looking forward to tomorrow. We'll be taking a deeper dive into the world of transportation of all forms tomorrow. So some of the Mission Impossible magic will be back with us tomorrow. So until then, thank you everybody for all your participation, everything that you've shared today. And for those of you listening, everything that you've learned and that you're going to implement in your own value chain, in your own systems. Thank you everyone for watching, and we look forward to joining you again and seeing you for day 3 of the Race to Zero dialogues tomorrow. Thank you and goodbye.